So it's all you, buddy. Buddy-o.
Okay.
Buddy-o?
So, as you know, this is the measure of an episode where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek. And this didn't come up in any of the discussions that I saw, but not just a dark remake of The Lottery. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul. And the criteria by which we judge these episodes, number 1, is there science fiction explored in the plot? Number 2, is that science fiction unique or novel in some way? And number 3, is there a moral or ethical dilemma? And I'm pretty sure we can check off the third one right here and now. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan. And before we go any further, I just want to let you guys know I am actually on a family road trip across the country, and I am recording in my car using my third child's car seat as my sound studio. So if this sounds a little funky, that's why. I apologize. We did the best we could to make this sound as best as possible.
Well, as long as you keep your eyes on the road, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she's pretty upset that I'm doing this on her lap, but, you know, she'll get over it. All right, and so this week we watched Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, episode 6 of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. And the blurb says, a threat to an idyllic planet reunites Captain Pike with the lost love of his life. To protect her and a scientific holy child from a conspiracy, Pike offers his help and is forced to face unresolved feelings of his past. Yeah,
love of his life? I guess, I mean, like, you know, they had a thing.
It's a little hyperbolic, right?
I know. Well, maybe that's how he treats all of his women.
Right, the captain from the first episode was the love of his life.
Or whoever he was that a captain? I was wondering about that. It actually is kind of unclear if his relationship with that first person that we see is his girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend.
Right.
I didn't think that it was his wife. I got that they had some sort of arrangement. But yeah. I guess you don't get the sense that they're super into each other, that they just kind of hook up when they can.
Exactly. Know? Yeah. And there was comfortable banter there, so it wasn't just like a one-time thing either.
Right. Like holodeck and chill type of thing.
Right.
They don't have a holodeck yet, right?
Not yet.
This point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were originally supposed to. That was some of the ideas that were tossed about for follow-up seasons. In fact, there's one episode where it's kind of alluded to in the original series, but it got canceled before they ever brought it up.
Well, I know that they exist in the universe because Archer encounters one, or a sort of a primordial one. Primordial? No, prototypical one.
Right, where he's on
it's
that
like
boat.
An alien.
Yeah.
It's like an alien thing, and they find it. It's actually kind of creepy too, because I think that's the one where they destroy it at the end of the episode. But it's really creepy the way that episode ends, because it just starts to, as it's just the debris kind of floats together and starts to reform itself. And I don't know, that never comes back in true Star Trek fashion.
Right.
But they do exist. So I am curious if Pike and team will encounter a holodeck at a certain point.
Yeah.
But that's neither there nor here.
No, that has nothing to do with this episode. And we actually have a lot to say, so it's kind of interesting that we went off on a deep tangent.
Are you telling me to shut up?
No,
Is that what you just said?
Usually we have that kind of filler when we have nothing else to say.
Yeah, that's true. And so the recap was very interesting to me. I don't know if you watch it. I've gotten in the habit of watching them for the sake of comedy to see because there's not very much show for them to recap. But they did the thing where they kind of outlined all of the character crises for Pike, for the Doctor, and one other person that I can't remember. Who else was it?
I don't know. Those were the two that I remembered too. I was going to.
There's a third one. I can't remember what it is. You should really write this stuff down in your notes, Jonathan.
I know, it's a rookie mistake.
I got the impression that are they going to resolve all of these things in this episode?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It kind of felt like, this could be the last episode of the season, but it's not.
No,
and they kind of do. And it really all centers around the technology of this race that these people encounter. Because Pike, he, of course, rescues the ship that happens to have the lady who he rescues, whose name I do not remember at all.
Allura?
Her name? Allura?
Mm-hmm.
Allura Dannon? Which is a Willow reference that you clearly did not get.
Did not get, no.
It's funny, I always remember Willow being this kind of staple 80s movie, adventure fantasy movie that everybody had to see.
Right.
That's around my age. Not true. Most people like don't get any reference that I make. I always like end up just standing there like waiting for people to join. It's like, hey, good reference, buddy. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that also is a testament, or not a testament. It really illustrates how successful it was in movie theaters.
I guess. Well, they're making another one. They're making a whole show.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But anyway, how did we start talking about? Oh, her name's Allura.
Allura Dannon.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, they rescue the guy and the little kid.
Yeah.
Who's really smart. I'm not good with names, apparently.
I didn't get why the dad, whose name is like so close to Garrick and Gul Dukat, I forget what his name actually is, but it's something that's a blend of those two.
That's kind of the theme of this show, because that's how the musical theme is too. The theme of the show is some sort of blend, some sort of amalgam of all of the shows. Like the original series is probably the most apparent, and it has a lot of some like next gen elements to it, that kind of thing. Anyway,
Right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I digress.
No, it's fine. But when he came off the transporter, he was so mad. Like he's like biologically only or something like that.
Yeah, it was I feel like that was a bit of a red herring. He was ultimately out to save his son.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you say biologically in name only or whatever he said, you get the sense like, oh, he doesn't really give a shit about the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I mean, they quickly covered that by saying like he's being ascended, and so it's, yes, he fathered that child, but he's not really been the father to that child forever. But also, like, as the episode went on, just thinking back to that anger, like it made a little bit more sense, because he actually seemed irritated that they got rescued.
Yeah, he was kind of an odd character, because ultimately he was deceiving everyone.
Right.
And we kind of go to his side. I think we're supposed to not like him.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're throwing a lot of stuff where we're not supposed to like him, because then the switch, when that happens at the end, is that more hard hitting? Right. Maybe. I don't know. He was sort of the most inconsistent character, I think, because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It seemed like he was trying to hide things, and he didn't really know how to represent that. The actor did, so his emotions didn't quite match what the undertone was.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't quite get a read on him the whole time. Mm-hmm. I thought that he was just going to be cantankerous a-hole, and that was just his character.
Right.
Like he's a doctor.
Yeah.
And most doctors on Star Trek are a-holes.
Right. Yeah, and he's from an advanced technology, and as we've seen in Voyager, advanced technology is usually very condescending.
Right. Yeah, I would like to talk about another character, Captain Pike's hair.
Johnny Bravo?
Yeah, I think it's getting a little out of hand.
Yes.
We were hypnotized by it in the first couple of episodes, but now I feel like they're taunting us a little bit with it.
Well, I think it's going to culminate to the last episode, where it is so tall and they realize that it's some kind of alien species that's been symbiotically joined to Pike, and they have to figure out how to get rid of it.
It's controlling Pike somehow.
Yeah.
Kind of like Ratatouille. There's something in there driving him.
Right. Yeah, since you're not allowed to wear hats, he had to grow his hair out really long.
It keeps getting taller because this organism keeps growing. Eventually he's going to have to walk into a room kind of hair forward, so he doesn't clip the top of the door frame.
Well, he will, and you'll hear, ow! Did that come from your hair?
Don't worry about it.
Right.
It's fine. Okay. So the number one, Una, and Pike clearly have a relationship that kind of goes outside of the typical number one captain relationship.
Right.
For example, you never see Picard and number one sitting down to have dinner together.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
I don't think. Right. I don't think they ever interface outside of when they're on duty.
Right. But I'm trying to think, and I feel like Picard and Riker are the only two that don't. But Picard and Riker are also the only two, aside from Kirk and Spock, that are both males. You have Sisko and Kira, you have Janeway and Chakotay, and you have Archer and T'Pol.
I thought T'Pol was like a science officer, though.
Well, yeah, but
is there a number one on Enterprise? Or on
No.
Enterprise?
No. Well, because there wasn't on the original series, so
that's true. Where was I going with that?
Just the relationship between Una and Pike.
Oh yeah, so that relationship, it seems that as though they have some sort of relationship that is predicated not on the Enterprise, but something before that. And so when she shows up, when Allura shows up And there's this kind of like, hey, Captain, how are you doing? It was like super horny for some reason.
Right.
And it was just super awkward. And Pike was just leaning into it a little bit. I guess he was it felt like he was embarrassed.
Yeah.
In front of Una.
Yeah.
They had some sort of relationship that was kind of a la Janeway and Chakotay, where they never quite cross a boundary. But there is something there. And so it felt just awkward to me. I guess it was awkward because it's just weird how much she was obviously coming on to him. I guess they're trying to make it like it's the lost love of his life. That just didn't make sense to me.
Right. It was very obvious that there was a history there, but what that history was, I didn't know. And I could tell that they were playing it as like Una was kind of teasing him, but it was just weird that they chose to go with his commanding rank. When she's like, Lieutenant Pike, and Una is like, yeah, why don't you tell me about your friend, Lieutenant?
It ended up being nothing. It ended up being not a thing, just like, oh, they have a previous relationship. But I thought there was going to be something. Like if you had done this in Next Gen, you would think if there was this much emphasis being placed on their relationship, like for example, if somebody showed up like that in front of Picard and started hitting on Picard when they first beam onto the ship, you could tell that there was going to be something driving that relationship. Like the plot was going to heavily rest on that previous relationship. And that really wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, they hook up later. And by the way, the hair, even after passionate lovemaking, the hair is
immaculate.
Unfazed.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I want to know if he like puts a thing over it, like, when you work.
A hairnet.
A hairnet, yeah.
Just pause
like
everything.
Shields surrounding it. Yeah.
He's like, all right, if this is going to happen, I need protection.
So they hook up, but it's never really it's not really part of the episode. You could take it out and it really wouldn't affect it that much.
Right.
I mean, I guess it kind of gives Pike a little bit of not an arc, but a realization about this person who he really does seem to like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one who says, we had some sort of connection before. I wonder why we let that go.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because he works for the Federation and she's on a planet that is xenophobic and doesn't like outsiders at all.
Right. Well,
that could have been why they let it go.
And, she's like, well, because in my race, this is like me hooking up with a caveman, dude. You are.
That'd have been great if she said that.
I know. She's like, call it what it is. You're just too primitive. I do want to kind of spoilers for the end, but it was interesting how there was almost a little bit of hypocrisy from her, because when he, shares with him his deep dark secret that really he's Bruce Wayne, she said that fate hasn't happened yet, so it can be changed. And then late at the end of the episode, when he asks about the boy's fate, and stopping it, she's like, this is how it has to be, and so it was just this weird, for her planet, they can't change anything, but for individuals, well, that's fine. You can change it if you want to.
Right. I feel like that's kind of the theme. That's kind of the tale of morality here,
Mm-hmm.
that they really hit hard.
Yeah.
This is probably the hardest they've hit. Well, I don't know. It seemed very on the nose. I guess with good reason, considering what they were going for.
Right.
But so let's talk about that for a second. So I don't think it's a coincidence. Well, let's talk about something else for a second. So, okay, Star Trek is known for holding up a mirror to society.
Right.
Especially in the original series, at least in its most overt fashion. And it seems as though Strange New Worlds is taking a play out of that playbook. But even Next Gen, all of them kind of like to hold up a mirror. And this episode seems to embody that practice the most for Strange New Worlds, because I don't think it's a coincidence that this particular race it looks the most human. I don't think Strange New Worlds has been very good about having very interesting makeup on humans to make them look not human.
Right.
And having interesting aliens in the Star Trek style, where they're all humanoid, they all walk with 2 legs and have 2 arms and 10 fingers, but they have interesting ridges or something. That's kind of the theme. That's the placeholder for new life in Star Trek. But in this episode, It is not the case. It is just a few henna drawings on their face.
Yeah.
That's just kind of
I thought maybe they were gills or, something, but nope. Yeah.
There's almost nothing.
Right.
They're basically human looking. And I think that's on purpose. I think they wanted to imply that the theme of this episode of the suffering of children, I guess maybe children is taking the place of something else, the poor, maybe, the forgotten, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We sacrifice certain others for the sake of society.
Well, we try to ignore it. We try to pretend that it doesn't happen. And she says that they very much acknowledge the one person that it has to happen to for their society to live.
Right. And this is what I've been asking for in the sense of the moral exploration or the moral dilemma, mm-hmm. which is it is not cut and dry.
Right.
It is not obvious because she actually has a point.
Right.
That I'm assuming now it's unclear because in the Federation they do say that after the Vulcans made first contact, like within 50 years, there was no more disease, there was no more war mm-hmm. on Earth. And I don't know really where this stands because they're implying that Earth and the Federation, there are people who suffer. And there is disease. I mean, it's clear that there is disease because the doctor he's holding his daughter in the emergency transporter.
Right. So the possibility is that because she talks about the Federation, she means the United Federation of Planets, and Pike can't talk about other planets. Like, yeah, that may be the case on Earth, but there are other planets that have joined Federation where to be there, they are standing on the shoulders of those who suffer.
Well, and that is the legacy of humans as well, right? And that's where they're holding up the mirror, is that they were kind of looking at us into the camera at that point saying, hey, there's a lot of suffering no matter how many iPhones we have or whatever, that there's a lot of suffering in the world. And that was kind of the hit us over the head part, I felt. Mm-hmm. But I did like that there was no bad guy in this, that of course they make them out to be the bad guy because they're essentially torturing a small child in order to make this planet work. But they say, and we have to kind of take the writers at their word, that, hey, we've tried to do other things. We've tried to make it so we don't have to torture children, but this is the only way we can make it happen.
Right.
And that's the statement they're trying to make, is that there's going to be suffering no matter what you do in order to have a society like ours, an advanced society. Mm-hmm. And I liked that part of it. I didn't like that that's where it ended.
Right.
I guess maybe that's just because it's not a happy ending. Maybe that's what I'm rebelling against. But it did feel like that was the statement they were trying to make. And, I would say that there is science fiction in the show. I don't know if it's necessarily explored. It seems like everything was leading up to everybody kind of wanted a piece of their technology because it could help their crises, like the doctor's crises, Pike's crises, and the third person who we can't remember. But it wasn't really explored. And so I don't know where to come down on this, but I do think that in terms of the writing, I did prefer that there wasn't a bad guy.
Yes.
There wasn't a battle at the end. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a gotcha moment. Pike can't save the day. In fact, Pike really can't say much about after she says, look, you do the same thing. It's in a different form.
Right.
But it's essentially the same thing. Oh, by the way, how many millions of kids suffered when you guys were developing as a society?
Exactly.
This is just one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he wanted it. He donated his time.
Right.
So I felt like that was a very interesting way to say it because, of course, now if it had just been a dude or a lady that was an adult, mm-hmm. I feel like I used 2 or 3 times more words than I needed to in that. Then I feel like there would have been almost no conflict. Yeah, it would have sucked for that person, but the fact that it's a kid, it had to be a kid.
Right. No, I thought it was great kind of for everything you said, that there wasn't a bad guy, and it's not really something you can outwardly combat. Like, yes, it's really difficult to put a face to the person who's suffering and to make it a child, but she's talking about the Federation, like you said, like it's millions of people, but they're faceless. And so it's so much easier to ignore that. And it's such a good allegory. It's such a good mirror to society because that's kind of how it is. Yes, there are people suffering. Like, we have enough food in the world to end world hunger. There are enough houses in this country to end homelessness in this country, but we don't because of corporate greed because of people not wanting to just greed in general, either corporate greed or people not willing or wanting to give up their stuff.
Well, and racism and bigotry and classism, all these different things.
Sure, right.
And political differences. There's all these different things. We need a first contact really soon, I guess. That's what they're trying to say in this episode.
Right. They're just preparing us for it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But to kind of speak to a larger picture and to go off of this heavier topic, this episode made me realize, I mean, we're 6 episodes in, so we still have 4 episodes to go, but it's kind of the undercurrent of this whole series that the characters are either being led to their fates or they're living on after their fate has been sealed. Just on the most superficial, last episode was Spock's betrothal. He still has to continue being in Starfleet even though he is betrothed to marry a Vulcan. This child's ascension, the Illyrians living on after they became like the Sun People, the comet being foretold, the original, even the first episode, seeing the future of Earth, saying that that's the direction that they went, and that's the direction that this planet is going. So it's just interesting that like every episode has had the fate of someone, and they've either accepted it or they're fighting it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, and the other thing too that's nice is there's only a handful. I think there's 3 characters. Everybody in Medical Bay and then Uhura, who have plot armor. Everybody else we don't see in the original series. And so they could live through the series. They could die next episode.
Right. Yeah. And I think if they had balls, which I think they do, they could kill some of these people and let them be dead for a little while. There's all sorts of creative ways that you can kill people and then bring them back.
Right. It would actually be kind of cool.
Marvel has taught us anything.
Yeah. It would be cool if, I know we talked about Uhura before, but it would be cool if Chapel actually got killed because she is so drastically different from her original series character. And she was cloned and brought back, still the same personality, but she just looked more appropriate to the original Nurse Chapel.
Or that she was resuscitated in some way and that she was different because of that. There's tons of ways that you could do it. I mean, you're right. It does kind of deflate any kind of tension when their lives are in danger because we know that they have to exist later. But I think, though, that they've proved that there can still be stakes, even though we know they gave us how Pike is going to die.
Right.
So this whole notion that whenever he's in peril, what do we care? And what does he care? We talked about that in a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
But it still kind of works for some reason.
Well, yeah, it gives him this kind of bravado, which is actually really fun to watch. Most people, you'd be like, you're an idiot for doing that. But he knows this isn't where he dies. So he can do whatever he wants.
Right. I mean, we talked about this too, in that he knows how he dies. He doesn't know how the rest of his crew die.
Right.
And so this idea that he can't take a chance too much, like he can't just kind of go out guns a-blazing with impunity.
Yeah.
But for some reason it works. It did kind of occur to me, if these people are so damn smart, this race of people, why don't they just move planets where they don't have to connect a child to it for it to work? Just move planets. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they have. That happens all the time. And I guess that's what this other group of this particular race was doing.
Yeah.
They moved to a crappier planet. But why do they have to be convinced to do that? Why can't they just go find another great planet that doesn't use children as fuel?
I mean, part of it is kind of what you said, but they didn't actually explicitly state, is that they do appear xenophobic. And I feel like to do so would require help from another race in general. If nothing else, just to be like, hey, can we move in next door?
Well, they can't find another planet. They can be xenophobic on another planet.
Well, right. But what I'm saying is, like, they'd have to go to another star system, most likely. And in that star system, there would probably be another alien race, at least on a neighboring planet, if not on the same planet. So, for them to move, this is just me heavy lifting. Like, this is nothing, like I said, explicitly stated.
Right. But I think that there are so many goddamn planets in the universe or in the galaxy. They'd be able to find a solar system that was uninhabited. Right. Especially because they set them up as the most advanced race. Like, they have these quantum bioimplants that just heal you whenever you get sick from some terrible thing or just blunt trauma.
Yeah.
You're just like, no problemo.
Right.
So if they can do that, they can evacuate their planet and go somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Which it kind of
maybe it would take 20 years, but that's better than staying there, right?
Yeah. And it kind of seems like that's what that faction is doing. You know, they're trying to set up that planet to make it more inhabitable.
Yeah. Habitable. It sounds like a shitty app for something.
But I was also thinking, you know, with the advanced technology, they've got to put their focus on terraforming as well. You know, if they're moving to a shitty planet, like make that planet less shitty.
Well, why are they moving to a crap planet? There's so many planets. I mean, they say that there's like billions of stars, and most of those stars have planets on them. And so why did they have to move to a crap one? You know what I mean?
Again, I think it's one of those things where they would have to talk with other races to find a planet, because otherwise they've got to do all the investigation on their own. And, you know, it's like the argument would be, is it really worth traveling that far when we already have paradise right here at the sacrifice of one child?
I guess maybe that's what they're trying to say, that we're happy with this.
Right.
You know, this is fine. They're kind of burying their heads in the sand as this is good enough. It sometimes sucks. We try and make the best of it with a little party beforehand. What I don't understand is why offer to bring the Captain Pike down and watch the ascension. Why bother? Just keep that a secret.
Right.
They were keeping it a secret up to this moment, and then Pike saves the day. He doesn't really save the day, by the way. He has as little to do with the rescue of the child as anybody.
Well, because the child wasn't rescued.
He rescued himself, and Uhura figures it out. And then Uhura figures out a lot of the problems, right? She uncovers a lot of the dastardly deeds by this whole plot. And Spock finds the message from the kid in one of the things.
Right.
Apparently it's like being locked in a trunk in a car made before 1990.
Yeah.
They don't have latches on the inside. Regardless, they invite Pike down to watch the ascension, effectively uncovering their whole thing. The whole reason they're xenophobic. They don't want people to know this because they have this paradise. The problem is it requires them to intentionally cause the suffering of a child. And that's probably why they don't want people coming down.
Right.
That's why they're so private.
Right.
They're literally torturing children in the basement.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't want to invite them in for dinner. So why now uncover this fact by showing it to a Federation captain?
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than the plot requires it.
Well, the plot didn't even require it. Like it did kind of require for him to know, but it would have been darker, and I don't know if it would have been better, but it just would have been an interesting take if, you know, he wasn't allowed to witness the ascension, but she comes back and she talks about how beautiful it was and blah, blah, blah. And he starts to realize, you know, based on what she's saying, that the kid's A, not coming back, and B, like being sucked dry, you know, and then all of that conversation happens. And that conversation happens after the kid has already been absorbed, whatever. And,
Right.
you know.
And it's not clear how long it takes.
Right. Like, was that.
Is he down there for years?
Right.
Or is it a month? Like, it's unclear.
Yeah. Like, how often are they making these sacrifices? Yeah. Which also, you know, kind of speaks to whether or not is it worth one child every 20 years? Or.
Well, I guess that depends on if it's your kid.
Right. Exactly. You know, or is it like one child a week? Like, you know, there's a huge difference.
You get the impression that it's once a generation.
Right.
Because they have this huge part. If it was once a week, it'd be like, you know, a sale at Target. It's not that big a deal.
Right.
Oh, you marked it down from $10 to $9.50.
Woo. Yeah.
Yeah. They're shitty jeans no matter what.
You know, but I'm kind of thinking of the Watchmen, where the guy is talking about his entire plan, and, you know, they're like, you'll never get away with it. And he's like, get away with it? You don't understand. I launched the missile 20 minutes ago, you know. And it's kind of like that, right, where Pike's like, I'll stop you. And she's like, stop us? No, the kid's already dead. type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer them to show us that as opposed to them report to us what happened. Unless there was some sort of investigation. If the ascension happened 3/4 of the way through the episode, and then there's sort of an investigation, Spock figures something out and finds the remains or something like that, that would have been, I guess, maybe a little more interesting. It would have made more sense that they are discovered as opposed to inviting the captain in to watch it. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Elora is lobbying heavily to get Captain Pike to come into their society. She wants him to quit Starfleet and come live with her.
Right.
That's the impression that I got.
Yeah.
So maybe that was probably not the right foot to lead with, which is the torturing kid point.
Right. Yeah. She's
You
like,
want to warm somebody up for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She's like, this is who we are. And he's like, oh, nope.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very clear that he does not like that.
Yeah.
And maybe she knew that, which kind of leads even more to the everybody knows this is happening kind of thing, whether, in terms of the reflection of our society and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we know it's bad. It's not that we don't think it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's bad, but we keep doing it anyway because it's helpful to those people who aren't being killed.
Right.
But it was actually very kind of haunting.
Yeah.
That when Captain Pike says to Allura, does he suffer? And she says, yes.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh God, this is pretty terrible what you guys do. But as you said, we're doing the same thing, just in a different manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's where it was just very haunted. Like I've never been haunted like that in a Star Trek episode.
Right. Yeah.
At least not in this kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's a genuine Star Trek episode?
I do. Kind of exactly what you said. Like the moral dilemma is very much there, and the sci-fi is unique. And its exploration is very superficial. Just with the doctor saying, wait, so you do this on a subatomic level? He's like, yeah, but we don't talk about it. And the whole like subspace conversation with Spock, which was the breadcrumbs needed for Spock to find him later. So I think there is a smattering of sci-fi in the plot that is important, and that it was all presented in an intriguing, borderline unique way.
Yeah, it did feel like the technology was more the MacGuffin of the show rather than it being a B-plot type of thing. The true part that everyone's after is the medical technology.
Right.
That's going to help Pike. That's going to help the doctor's kid and the third person who's having problems. Is there a third person? Are we just, because everything's in threes type of thing? Is that why we think that?
I think that there was another person who was shown, but maybe it was Uhura and her struggles, or maybe it was La'an and her,
oh yeah, it was Uhura. She was talking about how she knows 357 languages or something like that. That was important to the plot.
Yeah.
I guess because she could, why was it important to the plot? Because she could, what was her job? She does something. Oh, she's being groomed by the security officer for security training.
Yeah, she's a cadet,
La'an.
so she's going through all of the different departments, right? Like she was in engineering and now she's in security. Yeah.
It kind of wasn't necessary to have her in the recap. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I agree with you that it was kind of superficial in terms of the science fiction being explored, but I guess it's enough. It's kind of another thing where it's kind of on the fence for me. Because it really wasn't part and parcel to the actual plot. It was just something that everybody needed and wanted.
Right.
But, I think it's there. Plus, I like the episode.
Yeah.
So you gain favor that way.
Right. It is so much easier to say, yes, it was proper Star Trek when we enjoy the episode. But also, I feel like we've done some heavy lifting on episodes to say that it was proper or not proper. And I think we have done heavier lifting than this.
For sure. Oh, yeah. It would be fun though if we pivoted the show to be, let's take the crappiest of all crappy Star Trek episodes and make them into Star Trek episodes. I guess we kind of already do that. We kind of already give them little nudges here and there to like, how would this be better? How would this make more sense?
Oh, for sure.
So my idea worked. We did it.
Yeah, easy. Good job.
Yeah. So proper Star Trek episode. Good job, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, heavy lifting.
Well, what's next? Episode 7. I'm trying to come up with a original series sounding name. An Appeal to the Roses.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, how the fire in us burns.
Yeah.
Right? Those all sound like
Or
adequate.
the memory of tomorrow.
Yeah, there's always tomorrow or yesterday. That seems to be a theme in how they name them.
Right. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go watch it then. Is there anything else to say?
I don't think so. Oh, just if you like this, you can go back and listen to our previous episodes of Strange New Worlds, and if you like the cut of our jib, then you can listen to us. We talk about all the previous Star Trek, original series, Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, and actually next week, we will have a guest host, not me.
Should we reveal who it is? No, we're not going to reveal.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be Spock.
Yeah. I mean,
it might be Pike. It might be Anson Mount. You don't know.
Yeah. Could be any of those.
By the way, so when you say the cut of our jib, what do we think that means? I mean, I know what it means colloquially, but a jib, like the only thing I know as a jib is like a kind of a mini crane that they use in the film industry to put the camera on one end and you kind of pull it. It's like a small crane to lift the camera up. But I don't think that's what that means. So a jib must mean something else. Is a jib like another word for face?
I don't know, because there's also jibber jabber, which is just you blabbering on about stuff, and so that's kind of where I get the impression it comes from.
Yeah, but the cut of your jibber jabber,
right? I know,
doesn't make any sense. I'm sure we could Google it, but it's more fun to speculate, isn't it?
Yeah, I was, but I'm also referencing strong bad when I say that.
Oh,
yeah.
You mean the cut of your jib?
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? Now I want to know.
Right.
Well, if you want to know, tune in next week. We'll have all the information you need if you want to know what that phrase actually means. And I think that you have to start the outro because that means I have to do.
Okay. I've been Jonathan.
Unless you have something else to say.
No, I got nothing.
I mean, we can keep talking about the cut of your jib and how little we know about it. Like we can't even intuit our way out of it.
No.
There's not enough. There's too many words that don't make any sense.
Right.
And I've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
Hey, but you already knew that. What are you doing for dinner? And I'm saying that like Pike hits on everybody, but he doesn't. But it just feels like just when he looks at you, it looks like he's hitting on you. You know? Don't touch the hair, though. Stay away from the hair. Like, you can tell he manscapes, right?